You bought a pot of basil from the grocery store last week. It smelled incredible. It made you feel like the kind of person who cooks real meals. And right now, it's sitting on your counter looking like it's already given up. Here's the thing, that's not your fault, and it's not a coincidence either. That little pot was never built to survive past the week you bought it. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why grocery store basil is designed to fail, and how to take that same plant and turn it into something that keeps producing for months. Here's what almost nobody tells you. That pot you bought isn't one basil plant. It looks like one full, lush plant, but pull it out of the pot and you'll find something closer to 20 or 30 individual seedlings, all crammed into a container barely bigger than a coffee mug. They're fighting each other for light, water, and root space every single day. That's not a healthy plant. That's overcrowding dressed up to look impressive on a store shelf. Grocery stores aren't trying to trick you. They just know a full, leafy pot sells better than one skinny seedling in a bigger container. You're meant to snip a few leaves for dinner, watch it decline over the next week, and toss it. It's built as a one-time use herb, not a houseplant. So here's how you break that cycle. Pull the whole root ball out of its pot. You'll see one dense, tangled mass of roots. That's all those seedlings competing in the same tiny space. Gently tease them apart with your fingers. Don't worry about tearing a few roots in the process. Basil is far more forgiving than you'd think. If the roots are too tangled to separate by hand, soak the whole root ball in a bowl of water for a couple of minutes. That loosens everything up. What you're aiming for is one seedling per pot, not 2 or 3 together, because they look cozy. A pot roughly the same size the basil came in is plenty to start. It doesn't need to be huge, it just needs drainage holes in the bottom, or none of the rest of this matters. For soil, a basic potting mix works fine outdoors. If you're growing indoors, look for something with perlite or coconut coir mixed in, since straight potting soil indoors tends to attract gnats. Water it in well, then put it somewhere bright and warm. That's it. You've just turned one overcrowded grocery pot into several individual basil plants with actual room to grow. One thing to expect after repotting, the plant might look a little sad for the first few days while it adjusts to its new space. That's normal. It's putting energy into root development you can't see yet, not into looking pretty. Don't panic and don't reach for fertilizer right away. Just keep it watered and give it about a week to settle in before you judge how it's doing. Now here's the part that actually determines whether your basil thrives or turns into a sad, leggy stick: how you harvest it. Most people just pick leaves off whenever they need them for cooking. A few from the bottom, a few from the top, wherever looks good. That's exactly how you end up with one tall, bare stem and almost no new growth. Basil doesn't grow from the bottom up, it grows from the tip. And here's the mechanism. Every stem has a main growing tip, and right where each pair of leaves meets the stem, there's a tiny leaf node tucked in at roughly a 45-degree angle. When you cut the stem just above one of those leaf pairs, the plant doesn't just stop. It redirects all the energy that was going to that single tip into both of those leaf nodes instead, and each one grows into a brand new stem. Cut one stem, get 2. Keep doing that every time a stem grows another 2 sets of leaves, and instead of one spindly stalk, you get a dense, bushy plant that's constantly producing more than you can eat. Wait until a stem has at least 2 sets of leaves before you make your first cut, then snip just above a leaf pair with clean scissors or pruning snips. That's the whole technique. Here's what happens if you skip this and just pick leaves randomly instead. The plant keeps pushing energy into that one tip, gets taller and taller, and eventually starts producing flower stalks. Once basil flowers, 2 things happen. The leaves get noticeably more bitter, and the plant basically stops investing in new leaf growth because it's focused on producing seeds instead. A plant you've been pruning properly, on the other hand, never gets the chance to flower because you're constantly removing that growing tip before it gets there. The difference after a few weeks is dramatic. One plant is short, dense, and loaded with big, mild-flavored leaves. The other is tall, sparse, and bitter. Same starting plant, completely different outcome based entirely on how you cut it. And here's the part that makes this almost free forever. Every stem you prune off doesn't have to go in the compost. Take a cutting with at least 1 or 2 sets of leaves, strip off any leaves that would sit below the waterline, and drop it in a glass of plain tap water. No rooting hormone, no special equipment. Put the glass somewhere bright but out of direct sun. Direct sun on a cutting in water tends to cook it. Within about a week, you'll see small white roots forming along the stem. Once those roots are a couple inches long, pot the cutting up just like you did with the original seedlings. One grocery store pot can realistically turn into 5, 6, even 10 thriving plants over a couple months, just by propagating what you prune. If you've got more prune stems than you have window space for, that's a good problem to have. Share a few rooted cuttings with a friend, or just keep 3 or 4 going at once so you always have a backup if one struggles. Now the ongoing care that actually keeps these plants alive. Basil is a serious sun lover. Think Mediterranean garden, not kitchen windowsill in the shade. It wants at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day. Without that, it stretches toward whatever light it can find, and you get tall, weak stems with small leaves, no matter how well you're pruning. A south-facing window is ideal. East or west-facing can work, but a north-facing window usually isn't enough on its own. If natural light is limited, especially in winter, a small clip-on grow light running about 12 hours a day will make a bigger difference than almost anything else you could do. Basil also hates the cold. Try to keep it above 50 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. Below that, growth slows dramatically, and anything close to freezing will kill it outright. Watch out for windowsills at night, since the temperature right against the glass can drop much lower than the rest of the room, and keep it away from a radiator or heating vent that blasts hot, dry air on and off throughout the day. If you eventually move your basil outside for summer, do it gradually over about a week. A little more sun each day, rather than putting it straight into full sun on day one. The leaves can scorch if they're not used to it yet. For watering, don't go by a fixed schedule. Check the soil instead. Stick a finger an inch or 2 into the soil. If it's dry at that depth, give it a thorough soak until the water runs out the drainage holes. A cheap soil moisture meter takes all the guesswork out of this if you'd rather not rely on your finger. Just don't let it sit in standing water. Basil hates wet feet as much as it hates being bone dry. Because you're constantly pruning and the plant is constantly regrowing, it burns through nutrients in the soil faster than a plant you're not harvesting from. Feed it every couple of weeks with a basic balanced liquid fertilizer. If the leaves start looking pale or growth slows down even though light and water are fine, that's usually a sign it's hungry. Just don't overdo it. Too much fertilizer can actually make the leaves taste bitter and produce weak, floppy growth that attracts aphids. Watch for aphids too, especially on new growth. They're drawn to soft, overfed leaves, and a quick spray of diluted soapy water usually knocks them back before they spread. You'll know it's working when you start seeing new leaf pairs every few days instead of every few weeks. That's the plant telling you it's finally in a setup that actually works for it. So here's the whole thing in order. Separate that crowded grocery pot into individual plants, prune from the tip instead of picking randomly, propagate what you cut so you never run out, and keep it warm, bright, and fed. Do that, and the same $4 pot that usually dies by Thursday can keep you in fresh basil for months. If you've got other grocery store herbs dying on you just as fast, cilantro is usually the next one people ask about. That's exactly what I'm covering in the next video, so go watch that one next.